But one of the reasons why so many people stop the fat is because of cholesterol. Would you agree with me?
Yes.
So let's have a look at cholesterol. It's a good time to look at it because the liver makes cholesterol. And by the way, it makes cholesterol according to the demand our body puts on it. And 80% of the cholesterol that the liver makes is made from glucose. And 20% of the cholesterol that the liver makes is made from fat. Now this information tells us straight away it's not the butter on the bread, it's the bread under the butter that's the problem. And that's what Atkins found. So let's have a look at cholesterol. There are two main types. One is high density lipoprotein called HDL, high density lipoprotein, and LDL. HDL is usually called the good guy, and the reason for that is it's the carrier. So it carries excess cholesterol from the blood back into the liver. That's why it's called the good guy. LDL is called the bad guy. But what you've got to remember is the body doesn't make anything bad. It has a role. So what is its role? Its role is that of a repairer and a rebuilder. So wherever there's damage, you're going to find LDL because it's the repairer and the rebuilder. But it plays another role. It delivers cholesterol to the brain because the brain loves cholesterol. Cholesterol to the brain. Now let me show you something briefly. We're going to look at this in further detail later. Glucose burns at 4 calories per gram. A calorie is a unit of energy. That's what glucose burns at. Whereas fat burns at 9 calories per gram. Can you see why the brain loves fat? Because fat is going to give more than twice the units of energy, and our brain cells, they're consuming fuel fast. Let's have a look at the blood vessel and how the cholesterol works in the blood vessel. Because of its low density, LDL is always on the edge. Because of its high density, HDL is always in the middle. Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, who wrote the book Put Your Heart in Your Mouth, she spends the first 4 chapters of her book defining what damages the arterial wall. See, the arterial walls are lined with little endothelium cells, and chemicals damage them. Heavy metals damage them. There's your mercuries. Also, what damages them is mold. And we're exposed to, she defines, the reason why it's 4 chapters, she defines all the different chemicals. They're in toothpaste, they're in food. What's going to plug the holes up, students? The LDL cholesterol, that's its role, that's its job. So it comes along and it plugs up. If it doesn't plug the hole up, we would bleed into the tissues. Can you see that? So they're like the Band-Aid. But the person doesn't realise that the mouldy house is killing them. The person doesn't realise the 4,000 chemicals that are in a cigarette. So they keep smoking. They don't realise the danger in their washing detergents, in their toothpaste. So can you see that it's still happening? And they read an article that says, no, mercury does not kill you at all. Well, they haven't read the science. You know, it's a neurotoxin. Can you see what's happening? Something else is happening. So all through the bloodstream, we've got little molecules of protein. When a person is on a high carbohydrate diet, releasing a lot of glucose into the blood, the glucose connects with the protein molecules, and these little combinations become sticky and they stick. And let's say we've got a narrow piece here and they come along and oops, they've caused a blockage. That is the #1 cause of heart disease. That is the #1 cause of a stroke, is this little blockage here from the movement of the combination of the glucose and the protein making it sticky molecules. On a low carbohydrate diet, you haven't got that process happening. To blame cholesterol for heart disease is like blaming the fire trucks for the fire. It's like blaming the ambulances for the accidents. Well, they must have caused it. Have you noticed that they're always there? Can you see that reasoning? We have quite a few books in our library at Misty Mountain, and I'll write them down at the end of the lecture. I realise I didn't write down yesterday's books. I'll do it all at the end of this lecture. The Great Cholesterol Con by Dr. Malcolm Kendrick. Notice what he calls his book. He's a cardiovascular surgeon, The Great Cholesterol Con. And this is what he said in his book. For the first time, normal levels of a normal, vital body substance is being called a disease. We have a book, an Australian doctor, Dr. Peter Dingle. His book is The Great Cholesterol Deception. We have another book called The Great Cholesterol Myth by Johnny Bowden. And there is an e-book by another cardiovascular surgeon, Dr. Dwight Lundell, called The Great Cholesterol Lie. We have another book called The Great Cholesterol Hoax. We're running out of words. And in her book, Put Your Heart in Your Mouth, Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride, she's saying the same thing. These people don't know each other. They're from all over the world, and they've come to the same conclusion. It is not cholesterol. Dr. Ansel Keys, back in 1953, he put forth the theory that fat is causing heart disease. Did you hear that? So really by the 70s and 80s, it's big. Isn't that true? Fat phobia, that's what we call it. Fat phobia. So you know what they did in, I think, the late 70s? They created margarine to try and get people off butter to lower the heart disease. Has it?
No.
No, not at all. And what's the definition of insanity? To do what you've always done and expect different results. But something else has come up now, neck to neck with heart disease, and that is cancer. So that's one of the contributing factors. But something else has happened as a result, and this is well documented. You can search this one out. Margarine causes macular degeneration. That's a proven fact. So what else have they done to try and lower heart disease? Put everyone over the age of 40 on cholesterol-lowering medication, yeah? Cholesterol-lowering medication. Are you ready for the side effects? Dementia, muscle wasting, Alzheimer's, memory loss, and they've just added another one, breast cancer, because our sex hormones are made from cholesterol. I'll tell you a story to illustrate. I had a lady and a man attend my programs in New Zealand. I think that was about 2 years ago. They were in their early 70s. Tuesday night I spoke on heart disease, where I revealed what's happening with cholesterol, the truth on cholesterol. They came to me on Thursday. They said, we need to talk to you. I said, yes. The man looked at his wife and she just had her head down. He said, we're about to put my wife in aged care. He said she was leaving the iron on. We got to the point where we won't be able to handle her. He said, we came to your lecture and we heard what the cholesterol-lowering medication does. She's been on it for 10 years. It was Lipitor. There's a whole book written on the dangers of Lipitor. He said, so we stopped because they heard me say there will be a side effect to stopping Lipitor. Your memory will return. So this is a drug a person can be on 10 years and just stop. The side effects will be beneficial. He said to me, we're on our third day, and he said, I've got my wife back. He said, we are not putting her, we did not want to, but he said it was getting so difficult. And they both had tears in their eyes. How many people are in aged care with dementia and Alzheimer's and memory loss, and it's the cholesterol-lowering medication? I believe personally this verges on criminal. Especially when you hear what I'm about to say. It was probably 5 years ago now at Living Springs Retreat. We had a scientist do our program with his wife, who was a nutritionist. They're both in their late 60s. She's 69. She said, I've been a nutritionist for 40 years. So she said, I was educated in university 40 years ago, and she said 40 years ago we were told that a cholesterol level of 300 and under was perfectly normal. Has the body changed? No. So can you see what medicine has done? They've dropped the levels. They now say that if you are over 190, you're a walking, talking heart attack. I have had people say that to me. One girl was 30, her cholesterol levels were 192, and the doctor said, you've got to go on cholesterol-lowering medication. 30! We had a pharmacist do our program. She said, this really annoys me. She said, I know it's only a money-making scheme. Because if you go on an antibiotic, you're on it for a week. If you go on cholesterol-lowering medication, how long are you told you're on it for? Life. Now, she said, oh, I'm a pharmacist. I'm not against drugs. It's my business. But she said, this annoys me. You see, the brain needs fat. So, a study was developed or started, I should say. A study was started in the little town of Framingham. In the little town of Framingham, 30,000 people were assessed. This has been going for 30 years. They started it to prove that cholesterol causes heart disease, but it hasn't. It hasn't at all. Some people with low cholesterol levels are having heart attacks. We had a lady from England do our program. She said, I had a heart attack recently and I had a cholesterol level of 150. She said they did an angiogram, my arteries were clear. What happened there? She was under great stress. You know, great stress can constrict the arteries. There are many factors that come into play, as you probably can see. But what this study showed, the Framingham Heart Study, that's what it's called, it showed that people with high cholesterol levels don't get Alzheimer's. Why don't they get Alzheimer's? Because what does the brain love? Fat. So what's a good cholesterol level? Oh, probably 200, 250. So see what's happened? They've got many people on cholesterol-lowering medication. They've got everyone on the fat-free diet. And because you're not getting the feeling of satiation or satisfaction when you eat, the person eats huge amounts of carbs. They've lowered the cholesterol level so they can get more people on cholesterol-lowering medication, and people are eating margarine. Oh, surely all of that has reduced heart disease. No, it's still the #1 killer in the industrialised nations today, neck to neck, as I said, with cancer. So what's your liver doing today? We're not giving you enough food to run on. And so some of your fat cells are getting broken down to give the glucose that you need, but something else a little bit more sinister is being released. And that is the fat-soluble toxins that have been coming into our bodies over many years. Now this explains why your body odour might be a little worse than usual, why your breath might be a little worse than usual, why your what you're leaving in the toilet might have a worse odour than usual, because your fat cells, as they're getting broken down to give you that excess glucose or extra glucose that you need, the fat-soluble toxins are being released. They're back into the blood. The liver says, oh, not this guy again. The liver's about to wrap it up in fat and store it, and the liver says, oh, hang on. We're at Living Springs Retreat. We're receiving the nutrients necessary to break that down to a water-soluble state, because it can't be released in a fat-soluble state. So what your liver is doing is taking it through 3 phases. Phase 1 of the liver detox began yesterday on your first day of juicing. And in phase 1, your liver took this fat-soluble toxin and it broke it down to a metabolite. So what's a metabolite? Metabolite just really means the first stage of metabolism or breakdown. The first stage of breakdown, the metabolite is released. But this metabolite is highly volatile. This metabolite creates a lot of free radicals. This metabolite is highly toxic. In fact, in some instances, it creates a substance 100 times more toxic than it originally was, especially in the case of alcohol. And you might say, well, what's the liver doing? It's just created something far worse than it originally was. It's a process. It's just like when we clean the kitchen cupboards out, the kitchen looks 100 times worse than when you started. Or I'll give a guy illustration, when you clean the garden shed out, it looks 100 times messier than when you started. It's a process. Within 36 hours of starting the detox, phase 2 kicks in. And phase 2 basically comes to the rescue. In phase 2, the liver takes this highly toxic metabolite and joins it together with amino acids. The union of this highly toxic metabolite with the amino acids, in fact the scientific term is conjugated, basically joins it together like that. So the conjugation of the amino acids and the toxic metabolite releases the water-soluble state, or converts it to a water-soluble. And remember, as a water-soluble toxin, it can be easily released out of the body. So phase 3 happens in conjunction with phase 2. So in phase 3, the body takes the water-soluble state and it releases it out via your sweat glands. That's why your most important steam sauna is today, because you'll be releasing more water-soluble toxins than any other time of the week. It releases it out via your colon. So if you're not evacuating every day, please see the staff and they'll give you a little bit more of the colon tea. But also out via your kidneys, your urine. That's why it's vital that you ensure that these 3 organs of elimination are eliminating effectively. No use cleaning the house and leaving all the rubbish at the door. Make sure the eliminating organs are eliminating effectively, and that will ease any symptoms you may have on the detox. So what does phase 2 need? What does the body need to support the liver to cope with this toxic metabolite? It needs antioxidants. And antioxidants, they basically mop up the free radicals, these free radicals. So what are the most potent antioxidants? Beta-carotene. Beta-carotene is found in all your orange and your green coloured vegetables. Have you noticed that every juice we give you is either green or orange or red? So we're supplying high beta-carotenes to you. Also, probably the most famous antioxidant is vitamin C. Vitamin C is not ascorbic acid. Ascorbic acid, I think it's Dr. Robert Thompson in his book The Calcium Lie, he explains this. Ascorbic acid is just the envelope. Have you ever got an envelope in the mail with nothing in it? In other words, useless. But when you buy vitamin C, make sure it has bioflavonoids with it. That's how you find it in nature. That's called the whole C. Also vitamin E. Vitamin E is a fat-soluble vitamin. So you're getting your vitamin E in your protein drinks. So in your protein drinks, I think we either make it with either organic soy or almond milk and put a little bit of coconut milk in there with your pea protein powder. So you're getting your vitamin E there. Can you see that we are nutritionally supporting your liver to effectively detoxify you? I'm going to put this sideways because they are not antioxidants, but your liver needs them at this stage, and that is your minerals. And your minerals are in everything, especially that broth at night. Also your juices with your organic fruits and vegetables, and that little bit of Celtic salt that you're having before every glass of water. And vitamin B. Now, Deborah, I think it was you asked me last night, why is my urine bright yellow? I said, it's the B vitamins. You're not losing your B vitamins, it's just the reaction that it has in the body. So within 36 hours, phase 2 kicks in. What does phase 2 need? So phase 2 needs protein. Now this explains why yesterday, on Monday, we gave you 2 protein drinks. So you had 5 juices yesterday. So Monday, 5 juices. Your 8 o'clock one was green barley, 10 was the protein, 12 was green barley, 2 was protein, and your 4 was green barley, because yesterday your requirements for antioxidants exceeded your liver's requirements for protein. But notice today, well, today's only just started, you'll be having your 5 juices again, but the 8, 12 and 4 you'll be given protein, whereas the 10 and the 2, that's where you'll get your green barley. You still need those antioxidants, and we certainly are still supplying them, but because you've gone into phase 2, your protein or amino acid requirement is greater. So the protein that we use is a pea protein. It's been pre-digested. One lady said, who digested it? It's an enzyme action, like taking milk to yogurt. That initial breakdown has begun. We wanted to bypass digestion because we want your body to remain in the detox. So today is probably, if you're going to have any reactions, it will be today. Yeah. But what we have found, that since we've been implementing the protein, we don't get many adverse reactions happen at all. Now, if someone comes to our program, and it has happened in past times, who is a painter or a hairdresser or a cleaner, they've had big exposure to chemicals, we give them protein every single juice. And we had a Vietnam veteran do our program. He told me that most of his friends were dead, half of them were suicide, and half of them were cancer because of the chemicals. I think the Vietnam War was the first war where they used chemical warfare. And his doctor had said to him, don't lose weight. Why did the doctor say that? Because the doctor knew that his fat stores were full of fat-soluble toxins. So we gave him protein every juice. Remember what the protein does? It mops up those toxic metabolites. Now, we know our history. We know Jesus went through a 40-day fast, you know, and I think it was a miracle because it was food and water. But we see in times past, there are some writers that have advocated long fasts. Today it is not really safe because we are exposed to more fat-soluble toxins than any generation that has ever lived on planet Earth. It's coming in so many ways that we don't anticipate. I often say we're exposed to 30,000 new chemicals every year, but I was reading an article recently, 100,000 new chemicals every year. You have no say over your neighbour, but you have total say over your little piece. So just ensure that your washing detergent, the food that you're eating, it can come in so many ways. One lady said, it's going to take me forever to shop. I said, no, only the first shop. You just devote a bit of time, bring your magnifying glass. After that, you know exactly where to go. When I go into the supermarket, I'm not in there long. I know I get that aisle. One man said, just stay on the outside aisles. That's where your fresh things are. So please investigate so that you don't have any more exposure to those chemicals. I thank God that He has given us a liver that has the ability to detoxify us from the environmental poisons that we are exposed to today. That is the good news. But you'll notice that this also supports what Atkins found. I think when Atkins died, he didn't realise the 3 phases of the liver detox. This has only been known since, I think, early 2000s. The more scientist is able to delve deeper into the body, the more is revealed. But you can see why his diet was working because he was supplying high antioxidant. Did you know that his patients had to eat 3 cups of vegetables a day and 1 cup had to be greens? I think that's the only way they got away with it. Certainly there was enough protein and certainly adequate levels of good fats which keep those cells nice and supple. Now there are a couple of herbs that you might be interested to know that specifically have a tonic effect on the liver. In Psalm 104 verse 14, the Bible says that God gave herbs for the service of man. I love that verse because you just picture the herbs coming in. They come in and say, where would you like me? And that's exactly what they do. Lemon, the humble lemon, has a great tonic effect. You might have heard the old saying, bitter to the mouth, sweet to the stomach. And sweet to the mouth, bitter to the stomach. Well, you apply that to the liver. Bitter to the mouth, it's a sweet to the tonic. So, to the liver, a sweet tonic to the liver. So all your bitter herbs. So let's look at some bitter herbs. Dandelion. Dandelion is a well-known liver herb. Also St. Mary's thistle. St. Mary's thistle is also called milk thistle. And gentian, this is not as well known. Gentian is also an incredibly bitter herb. And a sweet bitter is ginger. So your 10 o'clock juice, which is Granny Smith apple and ginger, I think it's one of the nicest, has a nice stimulating effect to the blood. Tonight, when we look at poultices, I'll be talking about ginger in detail. So there's some of the herbs that stimulate the liver. Remember, the liver is a recoverable organ, and if you give it the right conditions, it can begin to recover. We're going to have a break now, and when we come back from our break, we're going to be looking at those little chemical messengers in your body called hormones.